of people who have a company, they normally have an operating officer and the CEO. They don't have a finance officer and a marketing officer initially. और वो किस
Perfect.
पॉइंट के बाद लेकर आता है? वो तो लाना पड़ेगा कभी ना कभी तो, वीपी सेल्स या वीपी मार्केटिंग.
तो यार प्रॉब्लम ये है ना कि बहुत फाउंडर्स को लगता है कि यार मार्केटिंग हेड लेके आने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि इतनी एजेंसीज अवेलेबल है, इतने फ्रीलांसर्स अवेलेबल है, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, राइट. और 90% ऑफ द परफॉर्मेंस एजेंसीज तो सीधा प्रॉमिस स्टेटमेंट ही गलत शुरू करता है. तो ये सब जो automate your business, just work for 2 hours a week, you can work from a beach and all that, ये सब मार्केटिंग गिमिक्स है, ये सब मतलब फैंसी स्टफ है. यू वांट टू बिल्ड अ रियल बिजनेस, यू हैव टू बी इन इट. आई मीन निखिल कामत आल्सो सेड
गुड एम्प्लॉइज वो बाइट बैक करते हैं कई बार. दे स्टार्ट देयर ओन. आपसे सब सीख लिया, समझ लिया. हाउ डू यू टैकल दैट?
आई तो मोटिवेट. बाइट बैक करने का ऑप्शन तब होगा ना जब तुम्हें चाहिए कि वो ना करो. One of my employees has built a 10 times bigger company than mine. He started as an intern in my company, went on to become one of the media buyers, started freelancing. There was a point where I sat down with it and I said, let's structure your life in such a manner that it becomes easier for you and me both. I said, either you take a full-time freelancing or...
Hi, my name is Akash Sonakia, and throughout my journey of building multiple startups, I realized that it is not that easy to make real money as a founder. हम सोचते हैं कि हम business चालू कर देते हैं, पैसा भी जल्दी कमा लेंगे, but there are going to be times where company is going to make money, but you are not going to make money. So this is the founder's first approach of how founders can make more money as the company owner. And in this process, I'm going to talk to multiple founders so that you can learn ways in which you can make more money in your company as a founder. देखिए, अगर फाउंडर पैसा नहीं बनाता है, कंपनी के अंदर ही मोटिवेशन नहीं रहता है. सैलरी दे दे के आप परेशान हो जाएंगे, EMI रेंट दे के आप परेशान हो जाएंगे. बट अनलेस यू मेक रियल मनी एज अ फाउंडर, nothing else is going to motivate you when we are talking about building a company. So there's a pattern that I'm going to follow. In that pattern, from each founder that I talk to, I'm going to ask about the mistakes that they made. Then I'm going to understand about the company they have built. Then we are going to talk about specific points about how do they position themselves, how do they select the price of the product or the services, how do they build the team and the people around the company, how do they promote their product or services, how do they define that their product or service is of good quality, or how do they actually determine the quality of the product or service, where do they promote their product or services. Ultimately, I'm going to ask them to tell us about the ways in which they made their personal wealth. And at the end, I'll provide you with the contact details of the founder. If you have anything that you can take from that founder, if you want to connect with that founder, you can definitely do that. Let's get started. Right. Hello. Hi, Nimit ji. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Let's get straight to the point. Tell us about your company. How did you start it and what you're doing actually right now?
Okay, so actually, this started more like a make-fix solution during the COVID period. I had been a trainer at the Facebook office in Mumbai, and a couple of friends who knew me, they said, if you've been helping people, I mean, especially businesses, learn how to use Facebook marketing for themselves, then during COVID, because a lot of businesses were suffering, they said, why don't you do this for, people that I have been working with? And I said, see, I've never trained people directly. I've always, done it through an organization. But if you think this is something that you can do, I'll be happy to, support your community and give them whatever knowledge that I can. So she rolled out a Google form to her community. 3 hours later, she sent me a text saying that, we've got 407 registrations for the workshop. And
just because of your brand name?
I don't think it's just because of my brand name, but I think it was a very specific problem statement that people were suffering from in terms of learning how to market and generate better quality of leads and generate online sales. So I think the problem statement really worked well. So people had that particular pain point. We didn't know about it. And because people did not know a proper channel as to kisse ye cheez seekhi jaye ya samjhi jaye, the moment we rolled out that Google form, we got like 407 people who registered for it. And I was like, I have never conducted a program with 400 people online being directly addressed by me. So this is how it started in 2020.
All right. So what is your company about in a lot more detail?
So we
Who
train
do,
entrepreneurs. We basically help entrepreneurs learn how to market their own business and scale their own, revenues. And our objective and our idea is very simple. We understand, as an entrepreneur myself, I understand the fact that there is no formal structured grooming space where an entrepreneur can actually go openly and ask. In fact, one very big problem is most entrepreneurs are judged. अगर कोई किसी को पूछ ले कि यार मुझे ये चीज सीखनी है, बोले यार तू बिजनेसमैन होके तुझे नहीं पता कैसे करते हैं. And to me, I think that became a very like a personal journey as well. And because I could specifically provide entrepreneurs with information and knowledge in that one domain which I know, we decided that let's make this available to as many entrepreneurs as we can. That's how it started.
all right. So in industry, there are multiple verticals, like manufacturing is one, service is one. There are more verticals. So are we specific to a particular vertical
No.
or agnostic?
So when we started the training, training entrepreneurs, we started training everyone. But slowly, gradually, we realized that the content that we are, the domain expertise that we have, we should actually customize the content based on that domain expertise, because that is what will give them the maximum advantage as well. So hence what we did is, when we started, we were generic. So we were applicable to all sorts of businesses. But then in a very short period of time, we went very specific to a niche, which was real estate. So then we started helping people in the real estate category. So all people, or all the business owners who want to grow their real estate business became our primary target customer. And we started helping them because we've been doing a lot of work for real estate developers. So because we've generated massive number of leads in this category, we obviously knew how to, do this particular thing day, and that's what our bread and butter was. So my primary business is we run a performance marketing agency. We run lead generation campaigns for real estate developers. We run online sales and conversion campaigns for e-commerce. So we strategize and we execute marketing campaigns for real estate and e-commerce and education. These are the three domains we do it. So when we started training, we realized that the more domain specific we become, it'll be easier for us to give these people a ready-made template to kickstart from, because we have so much of learning already in that category. So हमने इतना काम किया हुआ है. So then we started making a juice of it. Like we started collating all of the work we've done, and we started turning that into templates so that people can kickstart without actually applying their own creativity to it. So it was like a no-brainer for them. So they just have to come, learn, and copy paste whatever we've done, and we started working like magic. I mean, तो हमको ऐसा लगता था कि हमको जो आता है वो इसकी क्या ही वैल्यू होगी दुनिया में. But when that solves a very big problem for another business owner, they just love it, because it's like, you bring on board, you bring home an expert जो एक चीज ठीक कर देता है 10 मिनट में, इसको तुम 6 घंटे से ठीक नहीं कर पा रहे हो, and you're like feeling so good about the fact that somebody saved you so much of time and effort. So it was literally like that moment of magic when people started feeling that aha, the moment they started seeing the results. And we realized that became our adrenaline line, basically.
Mhm.
So it gave us a very different kind of kick, and then we started enjoying doing that. So in literally 8 months, we went from domestic to international. We went from training people in India to training people in 32 countries. I was one of the I was basically one of the trainers that was picked up by like Book My Show sells tickets. There was a online ticketing company who used to sell training programs for business entrepreneurs, selling Tony Robbins, Peng Joon. They also picked up my program, and
Wow.
then they took my program to 32 countries, and we were able to then, like, I have trained people from Indonesia, from Austria, from Georgia, from Australia, from Canada, from South Africa, Kenya, like literally any part of the world you can talk about. And we were surprised, and people are sending us selfies saying that I've downloaded your entire program to be able to hear this on a flight, and somebody's so there's a whole flurry of how entrepreneurs across the globe suddenly started using what we do.
Wow. So this is just giving me so many questions to ask, but we have got segments, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions in the specific segments.
Sure.
Coming to a very specific point that you said that you help real estate to get more clients. How are you going to determine that if there is a lead that is being converted into a purchase, which is the percentage is very low in a real estate scenario, but how are you going to understand that this is the lead that I gave you that got converted? How do you determine conversion?
So in the training business, we don't give them leads. We teach them how to generate those leads. They have
All
complete
right,
control from the time of they generating the lead to the time of closing the lead. And
all
that's
right.
exactly the reason why it become a hit, because they have complete grip and the visibility from start to end of the process.
Do you really think that online selling is working better than offline selling in real estate?
My entire universe is built online. So I can tell you that online advertising is the only way it works. I mean, practically speaking, you know me because of one of my workshops, which happened to
Perfect.
be an ad, which happened to help you understand about what we do. So
Yeah.
practically speaking, my entire world operates through this online world. I mean, through the online advertising itself.
All right. And how was your experience reaching to people across? You must have interacted with people across the world. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you see that where India is and where the rest of the world is in terms of understanding, capability to grasp things?
So that's a great question, honestly. Frankly, if you ask me, I would give more marks to people in India than people abroad. I think Indian entrepreneurs are way smarter, way more grounded, and I think it also comes from our culture. We're very humble, uh, also because we're focused on necessity, survival first. So we don't really look at you know unnecessary distractions, whereas entrepreneurs across the world are are not as street smart, if I can say, as entrepreneurs in India. So that's one difference I could see.
The Jugaad difference.
The Jugaad difference. Yeah, you can say that.
All right. Uh, exactly right now, if you would have a definition about your company, like today, how would you define your company today?
So we're an academy for entrepreneurs,
All right.
right? By entrepreneurs. So we want to be able to help entrepreneurs learn the most important skill sets, which will allow them to excel and scale their business from entrepreneurs who've already done it, right? Because like and this honestly germinates from a very deep situation that happened in my life when I was a student. So, like all 3 years of my college, I was blacklisted in my degree years, and only the limited time that I attended the sessions. One of the days I still remember, and I just probably I would never be able to forget the rest of my life. There was a session which was happening on entrepreneurship. And for some reason, entrepreneurship has always been very, very close to my heart. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19. So I'm listening to this particular session early in the morning at 7:30. The guys, I guess, about 72 years old. Uh, and I'm very straightforward, right? So I sometimes don't actually think I'm very no filter kind of a person. So मैंने सर को पूछ लिया मैं बोला sir, you're teaching entrepreneurship. Can you tell me the kind of businesses you run? And the guy responds saying, I have never run a business. And I'm like, sir, then why are you teaching entrepreneurship? And like, I'm sitting on the first bench and we are having this conversation and the class is paused. Everybody's listening to this conversation between me and the sir.
Mm.
And he's like taken aback saying, so like, because the student asking that kind of a question is too much of a thing to handle, right?
ये कहाँ से
And
आया
then I
वाला
just got up
क्वेश्चन था ये?
and then I just got up and walked out. And I mean, college में तो it's not like school, right? You have to just sit. ऐसा नहीं है मतलब अगर मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा है वो क्या बोल रहा है तो मैं उठ के जा सकता हूँ. And then I got to become the famous guy in the college because he's the guy who gets up in the middle of the session and walks out as that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I was like, it doesn't make sense to me. If the guy who's teaching entrepreneurship to me has not been an entrepreneur, I don't know why the hell would he teach entrepreneurship, and why would a college hire somebody like that? So, cut to now. I mean, 2 years later, I became a professor in the same college, teaching rural marketing and cooperatives. And 2 days ago, I was just picking up a takeaway, and there's this guy who's like, so you taught me in Raheja. And I'm like, did I? Like, yeah, I was a student. I said, oh, wow. I remember this. And he said, I still remember you because yours was the only most interesting session that ever happened the entire semester. I was actually hoping, why did you not stay for the rest of the year? Because you took a very small part. I said, yeah, I just taught for the half semester. It wasn't feasible for me to do the whole. And he said, I couldn't forget a thing about everything that you've taught during our college days because yours was the only interesting class that I've attended. And I said, fair
That's
enough.
the biggest
I
compliment
appreciate
any
that.
teacher can get. That's the biggest compliment.
Having said that, there have been funny moments also. When I said the question paper for the same batch, and जैसे वो एग्जाम डे पे जब टीचर जाते हैं कि अगर कुछ क्वेश्चंस है तो I can kind of help you solve them before you start answering those. So I entered the room and there was a supervisor who was handling that room. And she got wild at me, okay, because I entered the room half an hour after the paper has started. And that's typically the time when teachers come in to double check if anybody has any questions, right? She's like, you're late. Like, and the whole classroom laughed in chorus. And I'm like, late for what? And then I understood that she thought I was a student. So then I had to tell my students, I was like, guys, can you please tell her who I am? And then these guys are like, ma'am, he's a professor. He's the one who set this paper. हाँ तो ठीक है गलती हो जाती है and and so yeah but I think teaching should be fun, so I think this whole thing that I'm doing now probably is something that's been there with me since I was in college. Yeah.
All right. One question that is very specific to performance marketers. Let's say that I make this perfume.
Okay.
And I know who this perfume is for. I have decided who is my customer target customers, what are they looking for, what exactly. My research is based on my target persona. And this is a product that I think is suitable for a specific TJ. I come to a performance marketer and I say that, hey, I want to sell this, help me sell this online. And then the performance marketer says that this product is not right for the target audience that you have chosen because the trend is saying something else. So who should actually determine who is the TG, performance marketer or the product creator, product or the service creator?
So the right approach would be both. Ideally, neither of the two would be the only person to rely on, because performance marketing is all about learning from data. So the best way to do it is you signed up. So the typical way we do as performance marketers is we lay down multiple personas. So the same product could have like 5 to 7 different personas. We don't experiment. So we never ever spend 100% of whatever we are estimated to spend in the first 30 days. We will always run a 30% of that as our budget to test the waters and check those personas and check which one is getting, who's engaging with the product, who's converting faster, whose ASPs are higher, so on and so forth. So there are multiple KPIs which have been put on a table to test out through that particular period to check which persona works better for this particular product. Like in this particular case, the person that you're talking about. And once that is validated is when you start doubling down on the way you want to scale it.
Got it. And how tough it is to convince founders to actually make them realize that whatever you were thinking was wrong. Actually, this is what needs to be done.
So in practical life, it's not just tough, but it's impossible to convince anybody, because if they're convinced about their opinion, they would not listen to you, right? The best way to do it is you give them data. So the typical way we do it as performance marketers is, we tell them that this is what we think, right? So if you want us to take responsibility of this, we would recommend you to go with these personas. But if you want me to test out these personas as well, because you think these are more relevant according to you, we're happy to distribute the budget. Let's look at the data 30 days down the line, and then let's take a practical call. Like, let's take a more realistic call. Then it simplifies the entire discussion, because data speaks for itself. They know what's working, what's not working, and then they won't have an argument to fight for.
Till what size or what revenue, what number of revenue do you think the founder should have a dedicated team of performance marketer in-house? And after that, before that, there should be a outsourced performance marketer.
Okay, so now unfortunately this answer is going to be a little influenced because of my training business, but I'm going to give you a very honest point of view over here. Primarily, in fact, this question is actually very relevant, because This is literally the same question I had to ask myself before we scaled up the training business. Okay. So, and I'm going to add up to your question, right? So apart from the question that you asked, the additional question is, what is it that the founder need to know before taking on performance marketing?
Cool. Yeah.
Right? Because that's more important.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, once they know what they know, what are the kind of things that they need to do before they start bringing an outsider to do this job? Right? And this is exactly the premise where we felt there was a gap, for which we took all of the learnings that we have in performance marketing and we gave it to the entrepreneur. Right? So before you bring on board another agency or a freelancer or a employee in your company to do this, it's very important for you to know what needs to be done in performance and how you can fetch the most of it. Because everybody looks at performance like a sales magic wand. It's not true. Right? And because of that, and it's not their fault, because they've been taught that by the outside world that they go and talk to. तो वो उनको कुछ टर्मिनोलॉजी सिखाते हैं और वो टर्मिनोलॉजीज को लेकर वो सीधा अप्लाई कर देते हैं, right? Without understanding the subject. And that's exactly where we come in as a training company for entrepreneurs, where we help the entrepreneur learn and understand the fundamentals of marketing, which I think is completely missed out. And I'm a very, very big anti-MBA kind of a person. So if there was a chance and if I could dedicate my life to creating content, maybe I would probably start a YouTube channel saying, anti-MBA, and maybe create like millions of videos, because I think MBA is an absolute waste of investment. But basically, just to tell you, the kind of marketing that has been taught to people in MBAs or management schools or whatever is completely different than the real world.
True.
Right? It's completely different than the real world. And because of that, there's a massive gap in implementation of how an entrepreneur drives marketing for his own business. Right? And that's where we come in, where we first help them come to that common point of understanding marketing before they go to performance, and then take them to performance marketing. Right? So, पहले marketing के basics clear कर दो, then go to performance marketing. For the world, performance marketing is a sales engine. For me, performance marketing is a problem engine. कि तुम customer के problem statements को solve करते जाओ, तुम्हारा performance marketing outrageously work करेगा. But तुम उसको sales engine की तरह use करोगे तो तुम्हारा माल बिकेगा ही. तो ये fundamental understanding का जो difference है, because of this, a lot of businesses have failed when they try to apply performance marketing to their business.
So coming back to the same question, किस टीम साइज और किस रेवेन्यू के बाद में इन हाउस टीम होनी चाहिए परफॉर्मेंस मार्केटर्स की, और किसके मतलब उसके पहले कब तक हमें आउटसोर्स करना चाहिए?
So firstly, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to say,
let me tell you where am I coming from. A lot of people who have a company, they normally have an operating officer and the CEO. They don't have a finance officer and a marketing officer initially. और वो किस पॉइंट के बाद लेकर आता है? वो तो लाना पड़ेगा कभी ना कभी, तो वीपी सेल्स या वीपी मार्केटिंग.
तो यार प्रॉब्लम ये है ना कि बहुत फाउंडर्स को लगता है कि यार मार्केटिंग हेड लेके आने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि इतनी एजेंसीज अवेलेबल है, कि फ्रीलांसर्स अवेलेबल है, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, राइट? और 90% ऑफ द परफॉर्मेंस एजेंसीज तो सीधा प्रॉमिस स्टेटमेंट ही गलत शुरू करता है. सर वील डिलीवर 8 ROAS, 10 ROAS, 12 ROAS. मतलब शुरू ही वहां से करते हैं कि वो तुम्हारी नीड ही खत्म कर देते हैं कि तुमको सोचना ही नहीं है, हम तो माल बेच ही देंगे तुम्हारा. भाई तुम्हें पता नहीं है प्रोडक्ट क्या है, तुम्हें पता नहीं है प्राइसिंग. एग्जैक्टली, तुम्हें पता ही नहीं है प्रोडक्ट क्या है, प्राइसिंग क्या है, तुम क्या प्रॉमिस कर रहे हो यार, राइट? तो if you ask me, I think the first step is basically a founder needs to learn this themselves, because the day he knows the nuances of it, he will know whatever the other person is talking, is that crap or is that real material? So step one is that. Once he understands that, the second step is, unless he's been able to create a business which is at least 3 to 5 lakhs a month without performance marketing, then it makes sense for him to either incorporate a outside freelancer to bring on board who can start scaling the numbers, or bring somebody in-house. But the risk of bringing somebody in-house is because you're not an expert at that subject. You don't know how to groom them, drive them, so on and so forth. So it's better at an initial stage, you basically, hire a freelancer or a smaller agency who will handle those kind of numbers for you, test the waters. Once you have the confidence, and you have to be personally involved in the messaging. This is one of the things that I tell a lot of founders that they miss out on. They completely skip themselves out.
छोड़ दिया
अगर
बस
मैं
उसके ऊपर।
मतलब नहीं, और एक्चुअली इसके पीछे का बहुत बड़ा रीजन मीडिया भी है. लर्न टू रन योर बिजनेस विदाउट योर इन्वॉल्वमेंट, ऑटोमेट योर बिजनेस, फलाना टिकना, इतनी सारी बातें बोल देते हैं लोग कि फाउंडर को लगता है यार मेरे इन्वॉल्वमेंट से चला बिजनेस तो बिजनेस का मतलब ही नहीं होता. अरे भाई, सालों से बिजनेसेस खुद की इन्वॉल्वमेंट से ही चले. मतलब इन्फोसिस, when Narayan Gupta was off the CEO position, had gone through a massive day. Then he had to take over again as a CEO of Infosys at the age of 70. मतलब अगर आईटी कंपनी जैसी आईटी कंपनी में सीईओ को, फाउंडर को एज अ सीईओ वापस बनना पड़ रहा है, मतलब आई डोंट नो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ स्टोरीज पीपल आर फीडिंग देमसेल्व्स विद.
ट्रू.
स्पेशली व्हेन दे आर स्मॉल. मतलब 3-5 लाख रुपए में यार तुम मतलब इतना क्या तो कर लिया कि यू वांट टू स्किप योरसेल्फ फ्रॉम द प्रोसेस.
वो एक्चुअली वो एक बड़ा पैराडाइज दिखाया जा रहा है एड एजेंसीज. They're showing a lot of paradise ki see you need not do anything, everything is going to be sorted, we're going to understand everything. So I think that is also spoiling the market.
100%.
Now coming to the company again, your company, how big is it and how many clients are you handling right now?
So I mean, in our terminology, it's not clients, it's basically participants. So on an average, every month we train more than close to 600 to 800 people. And who are basically a part of our elementary program. And on an average, every year we train close to 300 people who are a part of our VIP program.
All right. So there are 2 stages.
Correct.
In the funnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone would want to, looking at this video, if someone would want to join your program, what is that person going to actually get out of it? The basic elementary one.
Well, so objective of this conversation is not to sell our programs, and I highly recommend people to never ever buy training programs based on any sales pitch. Always buy the training program based on your problem statement. So here are the problem statements that I always tell people to ask themselves. One, what is the most burning issue in your business? So for example, if your business is not growing because you don't have enough customers, right? Then instead of focusing on 100 other areas, कि मेरा ऑफिस बन गया है कि नहीं, मेरा लॉजिस्टिक्स है कि नहीं, ऑपरेशंस है कि नहीं, ये वो सब, all you need to do is put all of your focus on just generating customers. First, have enough customers. And for generating enough customers, you need to create an inflow of leads. And for generating an inflow of leads, you need to be able to have the learnings and the understanding of how to generate those relevant customers that will continuously keep coming inbound instead of you running after that. Those are the kind of people for whom our training programs will be extremely relevant. And we would love to help any entrepreneur who wants to take control of this particular process to begin with, and then eventually, scale his business moving forward. So those are the kind of people for whom our training programs will be definitely very, very relevant. And again, like I said, we are very domain specific. So there are training programs that are relevant for real estate business owners. So if you're a real estate business owner and you want to grow, if you're a real estate business owner, you want to grow your real estate business, then we have a 100x Realtor, which is a dedicated program for real estate guys. If you're an e-commerce business owner, then we have a separate program which is called as 100x D2C, which is specifically for the D2C business owners. Again, the reason why these are separate programs is because the content is completely different. And there's another trend I've seen with a lot of training businesses. Just because they want to grow the size and scale of their classrooms, they will go generic. But reality is that the world and the dynamics are very, very, very different for every domain. So e-commerce business ke logics real estate mein nahi apply honge. So yeah, so these are the people that can go ahead and sign up.
Yeah, I just went through your LinkedIn and I see that you have pivoted in your career. So I just want to know your journey of pivoting and when should a founder actually realize that this is the time for me to pivot?
Okay, so that's a great question actually. So first of all, I think it took me a lot of time to learn what pivot means. And I think every entrepreneur probably, 98 of 100 probably won't know about what pivot is, right? And it's absolutely fine.
By understanding what pivoting is.
Yeah, so I was exactly the same guy, literally speaking. Okay. In very layman language, I think the key that you need to ask yourself as an entrepreneur is, if what you're doing is already becoming mundane from a point of view of scale and from a point of view of function, and if you feel that, so for example, in 2013-14, I used to run a web and a mobile app development company where we used to do branding, web apps, mobile apps, websites, so on and so forth. 13-14, I realized that all of this is eventually going to go out of, business, because there will be tools. So I have personally used more than 70 different kind of martech tools. And I kind of had a sense 13-14 that there will be a lot of tools which will come in the market, which will take away a lot of the need of doing these services manually, right? So instead of making a website, there will be builders. So instead of hiring a developer, you can use a ready-made build. Instead of hiring a graphic designer, you can use your tools like Canva. So I think pivot is basically nothing but your ability to sense when what you're doing is going to go out of need. And if you realize that early on, then you basically use the same skill sets, but you change the core. So you keep the core the same, but you change the function, right? So my core has always been marketing. Earlier, we used to apply that to product experiences as to how do you create better product experiences for getting better customer engagement. Now we apply that to marketing, right? So now we apply that to performance, to sales, all of that. So the core skill sets remain the same, but we've completely pivoted to direction. In that also, now we've pivoted from just providing this as a performance marketing service to becoming a performance marketing training program for entrepreneurs. So that was another minor pivot that we did in 2020. So instead of just providing this as a service solution, we're now like, okay, there is a huge set of customers, huge set of businesses that we will never service, but who still need to learn what we're doing. And that's the reason why we got into the training business. So every time you sense that your core remains, that you don't need to change your core, but you can apply this to a larger audience, you can actually pivot and expand the size and scope of your business. And frankly, after we did this as an agency, we actually saw a lot of marketing agencies who slowly, gradually started realizing that, oh, this is a great thing to do. And they started doing training programs of their own as well.
So you were the first mover in that.
Yeah, sort of. And in fact, a couple of my employees have gone out and become, platforms where they bring on board trainers and stuff like that.
That is something that I will talk in detail in the team wala segment, because this is the very interesting
Sure.
part. Nonetheless, let's come to the point where you pivoted. There's a meme that floats around, जिसमें एक लाइन में लोग खड़े हुए हैं और दूसरी लाइन में लोग कम हैं, तो इधर से अपन उस लाइन में जाते हैं, जैसे ही वहां जाते हैं वो लाइन बढ़ जाती है. So a lot of founders look at pivoting and then they think that let me jump to whatever is working, and then it's a vicious cycle that never ends. So pivoting, you truly said it comes from within, understanding. That's a great point. Coming to the price now, when you talk about elementary program, how do you decide the price? Like for a service business, it's mostly dependent on the cost of customer acquisition, COGS, CAC. But after CAC, how do you mark up the price? What makes you mark up the price? There is team you need to manage. Your salary needs to be managed.
So I have a completely different approach to pricing. I think all the stuff that you're talking about is not something that I apply to my marketing, to my pricing strategy. I think my pricing strategy is specific to how big a problem are you solving and how much big a pain point it is. If the pain point is big enough, yeah, it's a completely value-based pricing. So jitna zyada dard, utna bada pricing. That's the straightforward way. Sorry?
Chris Do fans. Chris Do is into value-based pricing. Yeah, like he talks a lot about.
Okay, no, I'm not aware about that. But basically, the simplest way, I understand, pricing is, I think, the bigger the problem, the more severe the pain, the more serious the pricing should be. Think about this, right? If you go to a heart surgeon and the guy says, "हाँ मैं 10,000 में तुम्हारी surgery कर दूंगा," you won't be able to trust that guy. It's as straightforward as that, right?
Correct.
So, अगर heart surgeon 10,000 में surgery करने लगा, just for the sake of scale, mean, it's a stupid argument, right? अरे
Correct.
नहीं, I want to fill my calendar, तो मैं तो 10,000 में सर्जरी कर दूंगा, मतलब because the money is not for the surgery, the money is for the risk of the life that you're taking responsibility of.
करेक्ट. बट इसको हम बिजनेस सिनेरियो में लगाएं तो व्हाट शुड बी द मार्कअप, लाइक it's
So
relevant to
यार,
the business problem, but there is some certain amount of effort that you are putting in. There has to be some kind of calculation that goes in, right? There's a volume game that is happening. uh,
no, I mean, the reason why this actually makes a lot more sense than doing the other way around is because then your hiring also becomes value based. Because then you're not hiring people based on your revenue structure. You're hiring people based on the kind of, you know, deliverables you want to bring to the table for the people you're working for, right? Because then your hiring strategy completely changes. Then you're looking at skill sets. कि मेरे को अगर ये चीज डिलीवर करनी है तो उसके लिए मुझे क्या बंदा लगेगा, उसके लिए क्या कॉस्ट लगेगा, एंड यू आर नॉट रिवर्स इंटीग्रेटिंग इट. मतलब वो लाला हिसाब नहीं है कि 100 रुपया कमाया, 40 रुपया कमाया, 60 रुपया बच गया, 60 रुपया मेरा ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट है, उसमें से फलाना. दैट्स नॉट द वे टू गो अबाउट इट. द सिंपलेस्ट वे इज you look at the size of the problem, you look at the solution you can bring to the table, and what price people are. I mean, do you even think that the surgeons that charge 10 lakh rupees a surgery are in reverse looking at कितनी nurses लग रही है, कितना OT लग रहा है, कितना, मतलब that cost is, by the way, if people don't know about this, let me tell you this. Stent लगता है ना जो bypass surgery में, so the stent का cost 4,500 स्टेंट बनाने का कॉस्ट 4,500 है. बट अगर एक सर्जरी होती है ना तो एक हॉस्पिटल उसका 2.75 लाख चार्ज करता है. कहाँ पे तुम कॉस्ट ओवरहेड्स फलाना लिखना, ये वो सब किधर किधर ऐड करोगे? इसका कोई लॉजिक ही नहीं है. बट डज इट मीन दैट आई स्पेंड just because I'm making 2.75 lakhs, it's okay to spend 20,000 rupees on buying a stent? No. Stent का जो market value है वो रहने दो, that's okay. But that should not become a reverse integrated approach for you to decide what your price should be. Your price should always be dependent upon the problem you're solving. The problem with most of the businesses is because they don't look at it this way. They always, so they will price it, अरे मेरा कंप्यूटर इतने में बेच रहा है, मैं इतने में बेचता हूँ.
This is valid for services, right? But for products, you can't do that. Or can you? Like if you don't take Apple as an example, it's the classic example, like we need to eliminate that.
No, but the problem is the world has seen that example, but they've not learned from it. Right? If you look,
nothing
like,
tried,
like you said, exclude Apple from that example.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say that, right? So in a typical pyramid, right, there are different types of products. One is a massy, one is a mid, and one is a classy product, right?
Yeah.
Now, as a business, you will first have to decide what kind of, what part of the pyramid you want to belong to. And that comes from your core ethos. It doesn't come from how much money you want to make. If you understand that very well, then automatically you'll be able to start reverse integrating this process more easily. So for example, if you start saying, okay, I want to be able to solve this problem for this scale of people, that will give them this kind of value. And hence, I want to attract these kind of customers. So you make your pricing based on the kind of customers you want. I mean, since you asked me the question about product, right? A furniture is available, the same, a sofa is available for 40,000 rupees and a sofa is available for 14 lakh rupees also. Right? If you put the two sofas next to each other, unless you don't pull out the materials, unless you don't do a lot of the, digging, you won't understand what's the difference between a 14 lakh rupees sofa or a 40,000 rupees sofa. But दोनों exist करता है, right, market में.
Correct.
So it's not that it's not applicable to a product-based business. In a product-based business also, the way you apply this particular logic. So for example, if you had to go and eat at a restaurant, right, you would probably choose the restaurant based on the budget. But if a celebrity would have to go and eat at a restaurant, he's not choosing based on budget, he's choosing based on privacy. So the reason why he's ready to pay 10 times the price of what you're paying for the same dish is because he's getting the privacy there, which you would other. So he's paying for the privacy, he's not paying for the food. And as product businesses, people don't understand how to get this particular question answered. What do you want your customers to pay for? Do you want your customers to pay for furniture? You're absolutely going to be priced according to the competitors.
Mm.
Do you want to pay? Do you want to get your customers to pay for uh, the vibe, for example? And if I'm positioning myself as as a company that changes the vibe of your home,
Mm.
then I'm going to decide what kind of customers I want to change the vibes for. So, for example, if I'm like, a brand which is made for nuclear couples uh, who typically upgrade from small towns to metros and want to have a very self-built independent vibe. For
Mm.
example, I'm just giving a very random example, right?
Mm.
And if I position myself like that, the guy walking into my store is not buying my furniture, is
Mm.
actually buying his success story.
Mm.
He's buying for his journey. So he feels belong to that journey that he connects with. And that's
Mm.
what he's going to buy my furniture for.
Mm. That
As a product business, that's exactly what you'll have to ask yourself.
that brings us to the most relevant next section, that is positioning. And it's all about positioning then.
Absolutely
Do
about
you
positioning.
do you let's understand your definition of positioning first, and then I'll have a follow-up question.
Sure.
What is
Uh,
positioning?
so, I talk about this in my training programs a lot. One product that has been positioned the most, I mean, it's an obvious one, but one product that has taken a massive leap in their growth because of their positioning is smoking, cigarettes. अगर आप
Smoking
किसी को भी
cigarettes.
पूछोगे ना,
Uh,
cigarettes, basically, right?
mm.
Cigarettes, in spite of having the dirtiest packaging, are still growing massively year on year in their sales. Why? Because they're
Cool.
positioned so deeply. They're positioned as the companion for stress.
नहीं, शुरू करने वाला तो कूलनेस के लिए शुरू करता है, इट्स कूल, एंड देन
So
इट्स
coolness is
जस्ट
one of the personas. So coolness is one of the personas. Stress is one of the persona. So if you understand, people are not selling cigarettes. They're selling stress. They're selling a companion for stress.
ग्रेट लाइन.
So
So
whenever somebody asks me anything about positioning, I always take the example of smoking because I think it's the most craziest positioned product in our lifestyle that never has to be, sold only. मतलब वो अपने आप ही बिकता है because of the positioning.
that is a category position. When we talk
I
about
mean,
brand
imagine what's the
positioning,
market size of stress.
like 7 billion people.
खत्म हो गया ना.
uh,
The
True.
problem is people don't ask that question. The problem is people ask question, अरे furniture का market size, भाई furniture तू बेच ही नहीं रहा है यार.
Mm,
You have to first ask yourself, what are you selling?
correct. And how do you position yourself? I mean, your company.
So, like I said, we are basically, my company is primarily an academy for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Our positioning is very straightforward because we know the pain, the challenge, and the struggle that an entrepreneur goes through. We want to be able to save them the maximum amount of time by cutting down on their effort to learn something that they would otherwise take years and years to learn. Right? So, for example, if you were to do marketing yourself, you would go through the entire journey of the learning curve yourself. And as an entrepreneur, you know the learning curve and the pain of going through a learning curve. So if somebody can save that, you're ready to pay whatever you're being asked for. Right? Because I'm saving time. And as an entrepreneur, your time is the biggest resource that you want to save. Right? So effectively speaking, we help entrepreneurs save years of time by cutting down on their experiments in the wrong areas and by giving them a structure-driven or a framework-driven content that is tried and tested so that they don't have to do it.
Are we very specific to marketing, or there are
No,
other tangents that we
so
look?
we started with marketing as a domain, but now we're expanding this to a lot of different domains. So we're onboarding a celebrity voice artist who's going to train entrepreneurs on how to use voice.
And who's that?
Okay. We've just onboarded Siddharth Khanna, who is one of the biggest celebrity voice artists. He's a radio jockey himself. He's been an anchor and an MC for IFA, 22 years out of the 24 years of IFA. So if you've heard this voice, which says the next nominations for the best actor, it's that voice is Siddharth Khanna. And I mean, he has like 20, 30 different voices. So we're actually launching a program with Siddharth Khanna to help different profiles of people who do podcasts, people who do who are content creators, entrepreneurs, leadership roles, different kind of people to be able to learn how they can use their voice to either influence a one-on-one conversation or influence a one-to-many conversation. I mean, nobody's paid attention to grooming entrepreneurs in this domain.
True. Now, when we talk about onboarding personality like Siddharth Kanan over here, is it because of the celebrity status of Siddharth Kanan, or is it because of the talent that that person possesses?
Purely the talent.
Purely
It's
the talent.
purely the talent. I mean, celebrity status to 1,000 log ke paas hai. Yeah, it's purely the talent, and actually more than the talent is the intent. So when I first met Sid, right, it was his intent कि भाई कुछ करते हैं इतने साल 35 साल से मैं ये कर रहा हूँ. How can I make this useful to the world?
And how did you meet him?
So I met him through a friend, basically. So both of them are childhood friends, and this guy who knows me, and this is literally, very interesting. Actually, because this guy met me literally just once, 7 years ago in a, 6 years ago, in a networking meet. And we just connected randomly and we were in touch with each other. And then one of the days, my office is in WeWork and I happened to find him there, and we just knew each other. We never knew where it could lead us. We never did any business together. And then, one fine day when he, stepped out of his previous organization, he said, Sid is my childhood friend, and, he's been telling me, ye karte hain, wo karte hain, wo karte hain. And I couldn't think of anybody but you, because you've been doing your training. So he was a part of my training program as well. He'd become a participant. He knew me as a friend, but he also did my program. So he's like, nobody better than you who's been a trainer yourself, who's already doing performance marketing. I mean, if you can help Sid scale his, voice training, that'll be great. And that's how we onboarded him on our platform.
And then he scaled because of you.
So we're just launching his program next month.
Achha, okay. This is the first time that you'll be working. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How important is it to have a person who has distribution, like a celebrity are usually known to have a distribution, a reach, to get them onboarded in an organization? Does it help? Do you think that?
No, I didn't get a question exactly.
So suppose there's a brand, XYZ brand, they onboard a celebrity who has a reach, certain amount of reach. Do you think that really helps a brand, or is it the product alone that is going to play the role?
It's definitely a mix of both. Of course, having reach is very, very important. But I wouldn't say that having a celebrity with the reach, because today I think the good news is with digital becoming so easy and accessible to the world, every good digital content creator has become a celebrity in themselves. So I absolutely don't believe that there is it's not a dependency that you need a celebrity to build reach. If you have the ability to build content, I mean, you can actually build quality content, and you can actually build a phenomenal amount of reach for yourself. Or अगर वो भी नहीं आता है, तो you can be somebody like me. I have less than 800 followers on Instagram, but I've trained more than 40,000 people. So you can do that through advertising. It's like, we only come out on ads, and then you won't find us anywhere else. So that's another tool.
Recently, YouTube rolled out a feature known as buy the premium, and you don't get to see advertisements.
Yeah.
That is affecting a few businesses because the HNI is going there. The HNI client is getting away
It's
from
the reason why podcast is becoming the next advertising, right?
Correct. Now coming to Facebook also, Facebook is going to roll out something similar. Like Facebook wants to eliminate advertisement by getting some fees from the customers through Instagram or whatever.
Just one thing.
Yeah. Do you think organic is going to be much more fruitful? And if that is the case, then how are companies going to leverage organic in the future? Because everyone wants to grab attention.
So
And
remember this,
organic is
right?
tough.
So organic is tough. Like your last statement, organic is tough. Organic is slow. Organic is uncontrolled, right? And organic is subjective. The reason why advertising has always ruled the world, not just now, is because advertising can be put in front of the people that I am ready to pay for.
Mm.
And that's true for newspapers, that's true for hoardings, that's true for TV, and that's true for digital as well. So advertising, I don't think will ever take a backseat. Can't, by the nature of it, right?
But the
Because if businesses
platforms
want
are
to
not
grow,
allowing you to advertise to certain people, right? Like if YouTube has rolled
so
out, so is
no,
Meta, and
so
then
think about
Twitter
it.
is going.
So think about it this way, right? If you look at Hotstar, or if you look at Geo, or if you look at any of these OTTs, right?
Hmm.
Even their paid versions in the live streams, they run ads.
Hmm.
I mean, in their highest plans, they don't exclude ads from live streams,
Hmm.
right? Why is that the case? If they wanted to curb advertising, they should have done that as well. They're already taking so much of money from an individual user. But the reason why they can't do that is because, and I actually think of advertising the other way around. If you actually ask me, the world without advertising would look so boring. I mean, not because I'm into the advertising business, but think about it, right? You find interesting things because they are being shown to you by an advertiser who wants to reach out to you. Now, imagine if your feed was all about organic. I mean, your world would be so boring. So I think it's to keep the engagement. It's never going to be put on the backseat. But having said that, there are different routes. The channel will change, right? So, for example, let's say you have 10 million subscribers. The guy who runs a YouTube channel with 10 million subscribers is an advertising channel in itself.
Yeah, true.
Right? Even if somebody's got a paid subscription, the content he puts on his channel is what is being advertised. Because advertising, so by the way, what is advertising? Okay, and this is basically another very important, maybe I can just talk about conceptually.
Very important point, yeah.
Advertising is nothing but buying attention. Anything that allows me to buy customers' attention is advertising.
True.
Right? So if I have 10 million subscribers on YouTube, I have the ability to buy that attention in the lives of those 10 million subscribers who are frequently coming back and watching my content. Which means whatever content I put out in front of my subscribers is a form of advertising that content to the subscribers. लोगों ने गलत concept समझ दिया. Advertising is all about paid and this and that. Advertising is basically just buying attention.
Got it. Coming to your product, how do you promote it, and what do you think is the best mode for promoting your product?
So we very specifically use paid advertising channels. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Because for us, we're very clear of the filter that we want to be able to help on. Sorry.
You can have water. You can have water.
Yeah. What typically happens when I start my first bite. So for us, our primary mode of reaching our direct our target customer is through advertising, because it gives us control of filtering the audience that we want to engage. So yeah, I mean, can we do that through organic? Yes, we can. But will it allow us the scale, the speed, and the filter? All of these things together may not be, which is the reason why we typically use advertising as a channel to reach out to our customers.
Do you think consumers are now having this ad fatigue? So many ads.
Absolutely, absolutely,
How do you beat
100%.
that?
By being relevant.
Hmm.
The more relevant you are, the more engagement you'll. I mean, the more conversions you'll garner. Uh, if
Hmm.
if your ad is basically as stupid, as salesy as everything else,
Hmm.
you're definitely not going to get the customer's attention. In fact,
Hmm.
it makes your job of becoming relevant more important because customers only respect what's relevant for them.
Hmm.
And that's what we teach in our advertising program. I mean, in our marketing, in the training program that we teach entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
that's exactly what we spend a lot of time with them on. How do
Hmm.
you become relevant?
Hmm.
Because everybody's trying to sell the product, everybody's trying to sell the service, nobody's trying to solve the problem.
Hmm.
So what we teach them is how do you communicate with your customer in the language of their problem statement,
Hmm.
which will allow you to get their attention more comfortably and more easily, rather than
Hmm.
having to fight with your competitors because everybody else is doing the opposite. So that's
Correct.
how you beat the competition.
Correct. There's a very irritating thing that is happening nowadays in social media, that is pattern break. Suddenly someone is going to fall, and then there's going to be someone who's going to fall, and then suddenly they are going to come up with an advertisement. Those pattern breaks, it's a very irritating way of marketing something. But a lot of founders.
Horribly irritating. Everybody who has some sense will eventually stop consuming that kind of content.
Yeah, and every other D2C brand, especially D2C brands, they're doing just this pattern breaks, nothing else. And that is making advertisement such a lot more annoying than it can be sometimes. Like,
It's just a, in my view, I think it's just a very limited time gimmick that'll work for
mhm,
some time, and maybe then something else will come in.
yeah. So, do you believe that founders should ride on the wave of the gimmicks that work, or is it the traditional ways of marketing and advertisement that should work?
Uh, I definitely believe they shouldn't thrive on gimmicks. But unfortunately or fortunately, the world is made of multiple types of people, and you really can't, stop people from using those shortcuts, right? So I think it depends upon what kind of objective people have.
Coming to team building, what is your team size, and how did you hire your first person?
Okay, very interesting question. Currently, we're about 14 people, 13 to 14 people. And the first person I hired was an intern.
Mm,
Like every conservative founder does, you want to keep your costs low. So I started bringing on board interns. Like experience लोग को नहीं लेके आ सकते, खर्चा ज़्यादा नहीं कर सकते, so on and so forth. Uh, and by the way, this entire hiring process is also a very big contributor to why we pivoted to the training business.
mm,
When you used to bring people on board, obviously, like every business goes through, they have to train the team, let the team start learning, then they start implementing, and they start delivering and performing and all of that. And I used to actually मस्ती में keep telling my interns, I was like, यार मुझे तुझे पैसे नहीं देने चाहिए, तुझे मुझे पैसे देने चाहिए, मैं तेरे को सिखा रहा हूँ,
mm,
मतलब just out of fun.
mm,
Interns, मतलब I don't understand. Like people do 2 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees का programs, and then they come into companies like us and then say, सर हमें तो सीखना है. पहले तो वहाँ क्या कर रहा था? दस
mm.
लाख रुपए उसको चीज का दिया और मुझसे 5,000 रुपए की इंटर्नशिप करेगा, 10,000 की इंटर्नशिप करेगा. So I don't understand honestly how that particular thing works and how mindset of people works. If they're okay to pay 10 lakh rupees in an institute, but अगर किसी कंपनी में काम कर रहे हैं तो उससे पैसा चाहिए, जबकि सीख उधर से रहे.
Mm. How do you approach, or how do people approach you when it comes to hiring? Like, you reach out to them.
So we
Traditional.
typically used to run again. देखो जिस इंसान का ना डीएनए एड्स है ना, वो सब कुछ एड से ही करता है, ठीक है. तो
Mm,
we used to run LinkedIn ads. People used to
mm,
apply through LinkedIn ads. We used to run Indeed
mm,
ads. तो हमने हायरिंग भी पूरी जॉब एड्स के थ्रू ही की है.
mm. क्या परफॉर्म बेटर करता है? पोर्टल परफॉर्म बेटर करता है कि सोशल मीडिया?
डिपेंड करता है किस पोजीशन के लिए हायर कर रहे हो. इफ यू आर हायरिंग फॉर, आई मीन इन माय केस, when we wanted to buy media, when we wanted to hire media buyers, LinkedIn worked better. And when we wanted to hire operational roles, Indeed worked better.
All right. All right.
So it depends कि किस चीज के लिए हायर करो.
Hiring mistakes. Biggest blunders that you've made in hiring, what were they?
Yeah, one of the biggest hiring mistakes is being hopeful. One of the things that founders do is they are useless hope optimists, and उनके ऑप्टिमिज्म वो सबसे पहले अप्लाई करते हैं अपनी टीम पे.
Hmm.
अरे ये तो सीख ही जाएगा, इसको तो सिखा ही दूंगा, ये तो परफॉर्म करेगा ही करेगा. सो इवन द वर्स्ट guy in the team, you'll keep betting on him for the longest because you don't want to go through that pain or that process of hiring somebody else.
Hmm.
So I think being hopeful is the biggest mistake. ये सब we all listen to this hire fast.
Hmm.
Easier said than done. रियल लाइफ में करके दिखाओ, समझ में आएगा. बहुत मतलब दिल पे पत्थर रखने पड़ते हैं लोगों को फायर करने में. तो लोग नहीं हो पाता है एज अ फाउंडर. एंड बीइंग समबडी हु इज, I mean, at least for me, I'm a very like the world doesn't know much about that, but I'm a very emotional person by nature. So for me to do that kind of a shoot activity
Hmm.
is a lot to ask for. But I learned the hard way. So I think stop being hopeful, be realistic, draw clear expectations, and if people don't deliver to the promise that you want them to function for, then just tell them that you're not fitting into this particular promise, and hence it's better that you find another opportunity. So there's a very funny thing that happened a few days ago. These days, and this, and I think a lot of SMEs founders might be able to really feel the pain that I'm going to talk about over here. So as a small company, the biggest challenge is when people ask for absurd appraisals. We retain them. तो एक तो हो गया कि तुम फर्स्ट एम्प्लॉय को हायर कैसे करते हो, वो समझ में आ गया. ठीक है, दैट प्रॉब्लम वी क्रॉस्ड. सो फॉर अ रियली लॉन्ग टाइम वी वर 5-6 people, and then we realized what our core strengths were. So I started marketing that I started focusing on that in our interview conversations, and then automatically people wanted to work with us. So then hiring problem sort of became easier for us. I mean, we didn't have a challenge hiring the right kind of talent, but retaining talent became the next problem. Because once you go beyond 10, 12 people, then retaining the right kind of talent is the challenge. Take point pe, the kind of salaries people offer in the market is just absurd. उसको हैंडल कर पाना एज अ बिजनेस, बिकॉज योर कॉस्ट डायनामिक्स विल कंप्लीटली चेंज. तो अगर तुमने किसी एक इंसान को 60% रेज दे दिया या 40% रेज दे दिया, तुम्हें सबको देना पड़ता. एंड इट्स अ कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ द पास्ट कि एक एम्प्लॉय दूसरे एम्प्लॉय से बात नहीं करता कि उसकी सैलरी कितनी है. उसको उसकी सैलरी भी पता है, उसकी रेस साइज भी पता है, उसकी
SIP भी पता है उसको,
ये सब कुछ पता है. ठीक है, तो ये एचआरस को या फाउंडर्स को समझना पड़ेगा कि there is nothing called as privacy as far as financials are concerned. Everybody knows everything about each other. Which is why when you offer a particular raise to one person, you have to be prepared that you're not offering that raise to one, but you're offering that raise to everyone. Now, if people have not performed, then you have to be ready to remember the fact that they won't accept the fact that they have not performed. They will simply tell you, if you give me the raise, I'll stay. If you don't give me the raise, I will leave. Because uske liye, he can again underperform in another company.
Correct.
तो आपके लिए उसने अंडर परफॉर्म किया, आपको पता चल गया, अब दूसरी कंपनी में जाएगा, जब तक वो फर्स्ट लेवल क्रॉस नहीं करता तब तक तो वो रेज एक्सेप्ट कर लेगा ना उसका. आपको पता है कि उसकी कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, उसको थोड़ी पता है.
तो हाउ डू यू हैंडल दैट सिचुएशन?
So for us it's very simple. We hire more than what we need. So that's one way we solve this problem. We always hired more than the number of people we needed. Founders do the opposite.
Actually.
Right? They will hire less than what they need. So when you hire more than what you need, it becomes simpler for you that if somebody is demanding something that you are not comfortable with, you can absolutely say no. Because
on every role, are you hiring more, or in particular roles that you are going over the required people?
So typically what happens is, so the way we have structured our entire hiring process is you have primary roles and you have secondary roles. Okay? So everybody who's brought on board has a primary role and has a secondary. Now, once we bring somebody on board, the next hiring is going to be for that person's secondary role.
हम्म
ओके, तो उसका जो सेकेंडरी रोल है वो किसी और का प्राइमरी रोल है,
हम्म
राइट? नाउ व्हाट इट डज इज, अगर ये बंदा हिल जाता है तो क्योंकि इसका प्राइमरी रोल है, इसका सेकेंडरी रोल था, दिस पर्टिकुलर फंक्शन डजंट गो हेवायर,
हम्म
right? And then what we do is we create mix match shadows. So mix match shadows is, let's say एक डिपार्टमेंट मीडिया बाइंग करता है, दूसरा डिपार्टमेंट कंटेंट और क्रिएटिव करता है, और तीसरा डिपार्टमेंट क्लाइंट एंगेजमेंट मतलब क्लाइंट मैनेजमेंट करता है. So what we do is we make every particular department shadow each other.
explain me this
So
shadowing.
the client guy, the client management team में से एक बंदा उठाएंगे और उसको मीडिया बाइंग टीम के साथ शैडोइंग के लिए लगा देंगे. तो ही इज बेसिकली अ शैडो. तो ये जो भी कर रहा है ना, उन कॉल्स पे इसका मैंडेटरी है रहना, उसका कोई एक्टिव रोल नहीं है,
हम्म
बट ही हैज टू लिसन टू व्हाट्स गोइंग.
this is a process that is being used by big conglomerates. Shadow directors is something that they call.
Yeah.
This,
So
yeah.
so shadowing is a very powerful capability that allows you to, I mean, and by the way, we all know naturally how to shadow, because जब हम बच्चे थे, या for that matter anybody who has kids would know this, that the kids learn by seeing, not by
Hmm.
listening.
Hmm.
In fact, they start making meanings of the words based on the context in which they are used,
Correct.
not by the sound.
Correct.
Sorry. So shadowing is basically that capability that really allows you to scale your team faster.
Uh, between a expert or between a fresher, who do you prefer? कि लेकर के ग्रूम करना बेटर है कि do you think that?
Depends upon the severity of the role. I personally prefer freshers because they're easier to groom and train. But there are certain roles where you need experienced people. So
Hmm.
we've been through both the cycles, hiring freshers and building the team, as well as hiring experienced people and building the team,
Hmm.
and then realizing that some experienced people were trying to, sort of hijack the workplace. So we actually had to start firing the entire set of those people, uh, so that that misuse doesn't happen.
Hmm.
But again, these are very important tactical calls that an entrepreneur or a founder has to keep an eye on.
Hmm.
So ये सब जो automate your business, just work for 2 hours a week, you can work from a beach and all that. ये सब marketing gimmicks है, ये सब मतलब fancy stuff है. You want to build a real business, you have to be in it. I mean, Nikhil Kamath also said it. 6 years, by the way, before Zerodha became whatever it's become. For 6 years, he was living in the office.
Hmm.
मैं लग रहा है कि हर सेकंड पर्सन इज गोइंग टू बिकम अ जेप्टो फाउंडर, जो 12 महीने में 1,000 करोड़ कंपनी बना देगा.
Hmm.
So the problem is we always want to believe the stories we want to become, but that's
True.
not the reality.
True.
Right? You still have to go through the grind, and majority of the world is 99% of the opposite. Like there's going to be less than, actually not even 99.9%. 0.1% are going to be outliers. The rest of the world will go through the same grind. So having that intrinsic expectation of life is just fooling yourself.
Hmm.
एंड देन उसके ऊपर मीडिया तो और भी मचा देता है ना, मतलब पावर ऑफ मैनिफेस्टेशन एंड पावर ऑफ फलाना एंड पावर ऑफ इतना. तो वो कम पड़ता है कि पावर ऑफ मैनिफेस्टेशन का वर्कशॉप आ जाता है. फिर बंदा बोलता है मैं मैनिफेस्ट कर सकता हूँ मुझे जो भी चाहिए वो लाइफ में. अगर ऐसे ही हो रहा होता तो भाई, मतलब सब जो बेचारे 20-20 30-30 साल तक जो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स ने अपनी जिंदगी में टाइम गवाया है, तो मैनिफेस्टेशन से ही कर लेते ठीक.
Hmm.
And I think now what has happened now is, because of so much of random content being thrown at you left, right, and center, you start joining your own dots. अच्छा ठीक है, यहाँ से ये ले लो, यहाँ से पावर ऑफ मैनिफेस्टेशन ले लो, यहाँ से ये ले लो, और फिर मैं अपनी खुद की एक खिचड़ी बनाया. दिस इज द स्टोरी ऑफ माई लाइफ. हाउ आई बिलीव इट.
And when we talk about team building and team, there's one prominent thing that comes, that is politics. तो how do you पहले तो how do you figure out कि ये खेल रहा है मेरे साथ, ये इंसान खेल रहा है, and how do you tackle with that?
So any company that thinks there is no politics, including people who are 3, 4, 5 people, the reality is there is always politics. That's a
Humans
standard.
equals to
It's a
politics.
human nature, right? It's a human nature. Uh, but it's a very strong decision that the founders will have to take. That do they just want to focus on growth at any cost, or growth at the cost of, growth along with keeping the culture intact.
Mhm.
Now, if you want to have growth with keeping culture intact, there are certain things you'll have to let go. So I had a rule where I used to typically in the first 3 years fire the best performing employee in my company.
Oh,
Yeah, I have done that. So the first 3 years I always did that. The best performing guy I used to put him up. And I'll tell you why I used to do that, because it automatically makes everybody else work harder to become the better version of themselves. क्या होता है, जो बेस्ट परफॉर्म करता है ना, सारा प्रेशर उस पर डाला जाता है, भाई तू ही कर, ये तो सब गधे हैं.
तो ये कॉल आपने कब से क्यों लेना चालू किया? मतलब दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई हैव नेवर हर्ड बिफोर. व्हाट मेड यू टेक दिस कॉल? मतलब ये आया भी कहाँ से दिमाग में? दिस इज समथिंग वेरी यूनिक है.
So there are two dependents. There are two reasons why I started taking this call. One, it started giving me the comfort that ये best performing है, इसको और दो, इसको और आगे बढ़ाओ, ये करो, वो करो. What you are actually doing is you're giving him the control systems that eventually will bite you back. You're fueling the politics by actually giving more attention to the person who's performing very well. You will have to be the person to stop that pattern, to stop that change.
बट ये परफॉर्मेंस को हैम्पर नहीं करता ये मूव?
In fact, it improvises. So think about this, right? One great performer versus 7 bad performers, right? Now you remove the fun performer. Now the 7 bad performers become medium, like, mid-level performers. 7 mid-level performers will always be better than 1 super performer. उसको निकाला इसलिए those people have suddenly come on their toes. कि अगर बेस्ट परफॉर्मिंग को निकाल सकते हैं तो अपन तो वैसे भी नीचे है, तो अपने को तो बेटर करना ही पड़ेगा भाई.
इंटरेस्टिंग.
Also, then it becomes very loud and clear for everybody that nobody can get control of the system. Nobody can hijack the organization. क्योंकि अगर बेस्ट परफॉर्मिंग पर्सन मेरे से if he can't buy my, if he can't convince me and buy my opinions, or make me drive things according to the way they want to because they are best performing, then obviously everybody else knows that they don't have a chance. So it retains the control, but it decentralizes the performance. By just fueling the best performer, you are actually creating a monster on your back. Because जिस दिन वो छोड़ के जाएगा ना, उस दिन तो तुम्हारी सिस्टम क्रैश हो जाएगी. So you're giving the negotiation power in the hands of that guy.
When we talk about your team that is 14 people, ये एक फिजिकल जगह पे आप लोग रहते हो कि ये सब रिमोट है?
Earlier it used to be physical, now it's remote.
And what's your personal preference? क्या होना चाहिए?
Physical. I would always prefer physical. Yeah.
So are you planning to?
World in front of you is very different than world outside of your visibility.
So if the productivity in physical is, let's say, 100, offline कितना होगा? 80, 70, 90?
So unfortunately, I would like to not really dive deep into this particular question. I'll tell you why. Because I, honestly speaking, don't take this decision based on productivity and those areas. Because for me, I look at what's the need of the business. Okay. प्रोडक्टिविटी और ये सब चीज उनके लिए एप्लीकेबल है जहां पे मैन आवर्स बेचे जाते हैं. मैं मैन आवर्स बेचा ही नहीं हूं, तो मुझे फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता. Right? I'm creating my own IPs. So for me, productivity is equivalent to the value that they bring on the table. And I have personally seen that there are different kinds of people. There are some people who do phenomenally well when they're given their own space to perform. And there are people who do very well when they're put into a team in a physical room, right? So you'll have to hire based on the structure you have. Don't do reverse. अब तुमने पहले हायर कर लिया, फिर सोच रहे हो अच्छा अभी रिमोट जाऊं या फिजिकल रखूं, प्रोडक्टिविटी ज्यादा बेटर की तरह है. भाई फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल 100% ऑफ योर ऑडियंस विल नेवर फिट इनटू ईदर फिजिकल और वर्चुअल. Some people will be very good virtually, I mean, working from home, and some people will be very good working from office.
All right. When it comes to good employees, वो बाइट बैक करते हैं कई बार, दे स्टार्ट देयर ओन, आपसे सब सीख लिया समझ लिया, हाउ डू यू टैकल दैट? और ऐसा
आई
कुछ हुआ
तो
है आपके साथ?
आई तो मोटिवेट,
हम्म।
बाइट बैक करने का ऑप्शन तब होगा ना जब तुम्हें चाहिए कि वो ना करो.
हम्म।
One of my employees has built a 10 times bigger company than mine. He started as a intern in my company, uh, went on to become one of the media buyers, started freelancing. There was a point where I sat down with him and I said, let's structure your life in such a manner that it becomes easier for you and me both. I said, either you take a full-time freelancing or you take up the job and you leave freelancing, because it's not good to be on both the sides.
हम्म।
I gave him 2 months of time. He figured out his shift. He took up full-time in freelancing. I gave him the leeway to leave. I said, absolutely, more than happy to, make it. If you need any help, if you need any work, if I want to get some work done, I will also hire you as a freelancer. More than happy to do that.
हम्म।
At that time, it was the first 6 months of when we started our training programs and all of that. So he knew how we did the whole thing and we built the whole thing. And then eventually, a year later, like he was freelancing with a trainer, by the way. So eventually they became friends, then they became co-founders, and then they started a platform of their own. Today they've been doing trainings, they're doing very well. And I'm very much in touch with them. In fact, multiple times I've invited him home. We've had multiple conversations. And I believe and in fact, it's not with one, it's happened with 3 of my employees who joined me as an intern, and I groomed them to the point of becoming an entrepreneur. Because I believe in the fact that if you have the capability to do it, you should. There is no reason why you should stay limited in your job.
हम्म।
It's the stupidity of the founders to think that ये join करेगा और फिर खुद से शुरू नहीं करेगा. भाई तूने किया ना, वो क्यों नहीं करेगा?
करेक्ट। बट इससे 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 बाकी
How are
के
the rules
क्या होता है?
different for you and them?
बाकी you have got 14 people, how is it going to impact those people who are already working with you? Does it
Listen,
impact?
everybody doesn't have the risk taking act like that.
हम्म।
By the way, just because एक बंदा चला गया, बाकी सब भी जाएंगे, ऐसा नहीं है.
हम्म।
ये सब गलत फहमियां पाल के रखी हुए लोगों ने. कि अरे एक को जाने दिया मतलब सब लोग जाएंगे, ऐसा नहीं होता है. सबके पास वो रिस्क एपेटाइट नहीं होती है. सेकंड, सबके पास वो वेरेलतॉल नहीं होती है. जितनी मेहनत करने की क्षमता, उतना एफर्ट लेने का, मतलब to be able to take that much amount of effort, to be able to take those kind of chances, basically, right? Like couple of my employees who left my companies, even today, like 2 weeks ago, I had a call with that guy. He's like, Nimit, I'm still stuck with not being able to hire the right people. अब वो फंसा हुआ है, उसको he's not able to solve the hiring problem. He's like, कैसे करेगी आज? He was the one who told him that भाई पहले, मतलब so he started this business with his girlfriend, and I said भाई पहले उसको co-founder का दर्जा दे और उसको स्टेक दो, दोस्ती यारी साइड पे रखो. And honestly, these are the scenarios which told me that I think I need to be able to focus my attention on mentoring and grooming people, because that's what I've been doing with my people. Why don't I do that for the rest of the year? And that's when I was really able to make the maximum growth and money in my career. Because you are naturally delivering value to people. That's what they're going to pay you for. अब अनफॉर्चुनेटली मैं ये कर ही नहीं रहा था. मैंने ये चैनल अपने खुद के लिए ही नहीं खोली हुई थी. मैं तो जिद लेके बैठा था, नहीं मैं तो परफॉर्मेंस एजेंसी बनूंगा, मैं तो लोगों को मार्केटिंग सर्विसेज ही दूंगा, मैं तो ऐसा ही करूंगा. जबकि मेरा कोर nature approach is to mentor, is to guide, is to give people the right direction. That's what I was talking about in the previous conversation about pivot. If you understand your core, it's simpler for you to just shift the function, because then you can really monetize scale and still be very, very, very satisfied with the growth that you're achieving for yourself.
All right. Now coming to the next segment, that is building the quality. How do you determine so let's talk about your program. Endless effort डाला जा सकता है in production quality से लेकर हर जगह पे. But how do you determine कि इसके नीचे under quality होगा, इसके ऊपर over quality हो जाएगा? What is the right quality? How do you determine quality of the product?
The quality of the product is based on intent, right? Frankly speaking, there is no product in this world that's perfect.
Hmm.
If I have the intent to self-improvise, automatically everything that I keep doing is a better version than the previous one. So I don't see any particular thing to be. By the way, when I first started my training programs, we used to do it on Vimeo.
Hmm.
I used to record my sessions on my laptop, upload my videos on Vimeo, and get people to pay for it. And once they pay, then I would send them the Vimeo link. And 3 participants मेरे को बोल रहे हैं सर ये तो मैं 10 लोग को फॉरवर्ड कर सकता हूँ. मैंने कर ले. मेरे को मेरे को जो चीज करनी है उससे क्या रोक रहा है. If I am only going to worry about अरे नहीं नहीं ये तो मेरा है ओ मैं तो ये मतलब वो लीक हो जाए मतलब I have been working with coaches and trainers that we do the entire funnel marketing for. And one of the guys came back to us saying, my programs are being sold for 1/10 the price, this, that. What can we do about it? I said, are you even going to worry about that? जिसको मतलब हर ब्रांड की कॉपी बिकती है ना, तो will the brand stop focusing on their core business and start worrying about the copy business? I said, if you're being copied, take it as a compliment, enjoy, and focus on growing your core. We have never. So, and by the way, quality wise, क्या quality? Vimeo पे दे रहे हो यार. I'm delivering my video, my training programs on a Vimeo video. मैं 4 महीने रुका हुआ था कि ब्लैक फ्राइडे सेल आएगा कि लाइफ टाइम डील मिलेगी, तो लाइफ टाइम डील ली, वो 2 साल का सब्सक्रिप्शन लिया, तब जाके Vimeo पे लोगों को ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम देना शुरू किया. तब तक गूगल ड्राइव पे दे रहा था. Quality, and what people pay for is the content. They don't pay for. So by the way, if you're absolutely confident about the value of what you're delivering to people, they will accept it in any form you give it to them.
Clear.
We went from there, and now we have a proper LMS. ये वो सब तो full-fledged, like our training program has everything in the backend now. So we know exactly what the course progress, how much people are doing it. ये वो सब.
What is the platform that you use now?
So we use this platform called Zenler. It's a LMS tool, very robust and very reliable. We've been using it for 2 years now.
All right. Just between the before we started this conversation, you were telling me something about Pepsi, the cost of Pepsi, and the analogy. Right?
No, so this one is related to the pricing that you were talking about, right? So pricing, you were talking about overheads, profits. Okay, how does somebody decide the pricing based on क्या cost पड़ रही है ये वो सब. And I think basically what people miss out on, or entrepreneurs miss out on, is understanding the fact that what they need to build is a multi-level or a multi-layered funnel in their business, right? Every business should have a funnel. When I say funnel, I don't mean the marketing funnel, I mean the sales funnel, where you have multiple types of products. Okay. So if you have a product which is, let's say, 100 rupees, you also need to have a product which is 1,000, 1,500, 4,000, and 50,000. Now, the problem with most of the entrepreneurs is they can't understand this because they just want to be very hell-bent of focusing on one service, one pricing, because it's simpler, right? You just have one template. Every time somebody comes to you, you just send them that email and you're done. But reality is that today the business dynamics have completely changed. Right? So the key is to be able to build the funnel. And specific to the question you asked me, I think one of the companies that did this phenomenally well, long time back when the concept of funnel did not even exist, is a company like McDonald's, who knew how to upsell. Right? So the moment you went for a burger, they would say, sir, would you want to make this a combo? Now, what is a combo? So they would give you a burger, fries, and Coke. Right? So by the way, the minimum margin that they make is on the burger. They don't make any margin, literally, almost.
Minimum is on a burger.
Is on the burger.
All right. And the maximum?
Okay. Is on the Coke.
And what is that?
So the Coke they give you, which is loose, like it's filled in a cup, right? So it's not in a bottled, packaged form. It's in a cup. That Coke, which they give you, costs them 1 rupees 75 paisa
Really?
per glass.
And they're selling it upwards of 100 rupees.
Yeah, so they will make it a combo. So basically, let's say, for example, if your cart, like if your total value is, let's say, a burger is 70 rupees or 60 rupees or whatever, they'll make it a combo and they'll give it to you for 120 rupees. Now, that additional 60 rupees that they've been able to take from you, their cost is literally 2 rupees or 3 rupees incrementally.
Oh. Literally liquid money.
But that's how the franchisees, so that's how they're able to share the profits with the franchisees, right? Because there are so many layers. So there's a central kitchen that they manage, then the kitchen sends out the stuff to the franchisees. The franchisees have rent to pay, salaries to pay, all of that. And after that, whatever profit they make, right? So if the franchisees don't make a net of 10-15% of whatever they're selling, the franchisees won't be motivated enough to run the business. McDonald's is a franchise-based business, right? So the whole idea of combos came into being to increase the profitability of a transaction.
That is increasing the average order value.
And that is exactly what we do in advertising. So for example, when you buy a program worth, let's say, 299 or 999, if on the next step, I cannot sell you a 3,000 rupees or a 5,000 rupees product, I'm always going to find advertising to be expensive, because to bring on board a customer to this value, I'm still going to land up paying the same amount of money as somebody else selling a 20,000 rupees product. Because there is a minimum cost of buying the time. Remember, I told you advertising is about buying attention.
Correct.
If I'm using the same channel, let's say I'm using Instagram. Now, I'm using Instagram to buy attention of a customer to sell a 299 rupees workshop, versus somebody else is buying attention to sell a 20,000 rupees watch. Effectively, both of them are using the same platform. How on earth is my and his cost going to be different? We're bidding against each other. The only way I will start making money is by creating the upsells. And this, unless a service business or a product business understands very well, they're not going to make it. So in my workshops, and I'm going to reveal something that I typically only give to my VIP participants in my advanced program, but I'm going to share this with you and all the listeners that are basically plugged into this particular conversation right now. So I call it the decathlon strategy, right? So if you go to the decathlon stores, you'll typically see that they have this 49 rupees poster, 99 rupees poster on the facade. But if you ever want, go interview anybody who walks out of a decathlon, their average cart value is between 3,000 to 7,000. They would never walk out with a 99 rupees product, because psychologically, it doesn't fit into the fact that, oh, I got up, walked into a store and just bought a 90. Will you ever go and buy a 99 rupees socks and walk out? You'll never do that.
No.
Right? So an average cart value of a decathlon is 3,000 to 7,000. That's because of the upsell.
DMart also does.
Exactly. But DMart is still more groceries, right? So it's still understandable. But Decathlon being an apparel or a fashion, a sports or an adventure brand, this strategy is something that everybody in the business should apply. So,
to figure out the ways in which you can increase your average order value, that is the key.
That's the key.
Do upsell, cross sales, downsell, whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's say if my service, so let's say if I'm a lawyer, right, and my hourly cost is 1 lakh rupees, right? Now, a lawyer who's charging 1 lakh rupees an hour, he'll be like, what do I do to grow my business? The simplest way he could go about creating a bigger funnel for his potential customers is by creating a free education seminar that he could do once in 15 days for an hour, because there people are just coming in to listen to his credibility. The knowledge he's sharing is actually not taking away from his profits, because those people are just going to actually go back to him to hire his services. That's a validation. That conversation is a chance for him to tell people, this is my capability and this is the reason why I charge 1 lakh an hour. Right? So that's how we expand the funnel. So, and for example, let's say I attended a pre-workshop of somebody who's charging 1 lakh an hour, and the guy says, I'm a champion at helping people uh, win, uh, you know, fraud property cases, for example, right? And I charge 1 lakh an hour. Now, property values are typically between 2 to 5 crores, 10 crores, could be anything, right? But I did a free webinar. The people who are listening to that become your source of distribution. So let's say you brought 200 people into the program, you didn't charge anything, but you're actually bringing these free distributors for your content, for your services, who will then go out and say, hey, you know what? I heard this guy. He's damn bloody good. If you have a property problem, you should go to him. That's how distribution works.
Got it. Got it. This brings us to the most important segment, and that is wealth building. So, Nimit ji, when was the first time that you saw money? पैसा कब देगा आपने?
So before I answer that question, I think you said a very interesting thing in one of our conversations a while back.
Yeah.
First of all, entrepreneurs need to know and learn the fact that the first 3 to 4 years, you're not going to make any money. So if you're becoming an entrepreneur because you want to make money, that's an absolutely incorrect direction to start from. Don't become an entrepreneur for making money. Become an entrepreneur for solving a problem, for solutioning your customers in the specific challenge or the pain point they're going. Because that's what will give you the money. It'll take you a lot of time to figure it out, and it's okay. People have taken lots and lots of years to get themselves off the ground. But in the current day and age, I think the speeded up timeline is 3 years, at least. So yes, as entrepreneurs, be ready that, for the first 3 years, you're not going to make money.
What should a founder do? Should he or she withdraw salary, जो कि पहले inconsistent रहती है income शुरू में, or should the person only depend on dividends?
That salary and dividends too far off. So I'll tell you how I function. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I typically used to do it this way, and actually it kind of worked in the favor of my business. Fortunate for me, but performance marketing was my primary business. So one fine day when I was not able to withdraw salaries, and obviously you have expenses and you have to manage house and responsibilities and all of that, I'm like thinking to myself, "Ab kya kare?" And I won't lie the fact that, and I believe a lot of entrepreneurs would have been going through this phase as well. They would have been thinking, should I continue to run this business or should I just go and apply somewhere and just take up a job? So I've been through that phase myself. So I actually opened up Indeed and started searching for a job. And I found out that there was a job of a trainer where they wanted somebody to train on inbound marketing. And I was like, यार ये तो अच्छी जॉब है, मेरे को फुल टाइम की इधर काम नहीं करना पड़ेगा. So I applied for it. They interviewed me. They liked the way I spoke. Then they gave me the content. Then they said, prepare this and come back and present it. Then I presented it again. They liked it. Then they brought me on board as a professor who was going to teach people how to do inbound marketing. This is basically a digital marketing institute called Digital Vidya, one of the oldest in India. And they would pay me 2,000 rupees an hour. So I would teach every Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., which is 3 hours each. So a weekend would typically make me 12,000, like 6,000 on Saturday and 6,000 on Sunday. So 12,000 rupees is what I would make on a weekend. On an average, I would typically have 2 weekends, at least 2 to 3 weekends occupied if there is a batch going on. So that would be close to 36,000 rupees. That used to be enough 5-6 years ago, given my commitments to take care of the necessities. So the way I look at it is, I think as a founder, you will always have to find alternative source of income where even if you invest 10% of your time, it at least gives you enough to breathe. And then dedicate the rest of your time in building your core business. So I would invest 90% of my time building the core business, 10% of time doing these things on the weekend. Abhi weekend pe to वैसे भी मेरा काम नहीं होना है. and वो भी 9 to 12, मतलब 90% of the world will be sleeping and chilling at that time. I'm okay with losing on my sleep a little bit and making a parallel income which allows me to not put the burden of my salaries on my business. That's how I started taking my business off the ground. So to me, the way I look at it is always a founder should pay themselves the equivalent amount of salary doing something with 10% of their time. That would at least pay them 50% of what their regular salary would be. That would service the necessities of their life. If that gets taken care of, then I think you're good to go, right?
One thing that I often see with founders is that there is no scope of doing a investment like SIP or something, because salary wale log kar sakte hain. We cannot do that. So what do you think is a good strategy for a founder to actually make wealth for a long term?
Invest in yourself and invest in your business.
Business is the only way.
So मेरे को जब कोई पूछता है, so there was a conversation when I was talking to another trainer. He said, so how much money do you make? So typically on an average funders, if we invest, let's say 2 lakh rupees in advertising, we typically make like 3x, 2.5 to 3x or 4x max, right? So he would be like, okay, so every time you make this money, where do you invest this? So what sort of a question is that? I said, we run another fund with that money. म्यूचुअल फंड में नहीं डालता है क्या? उनका नहीं, रियल एस्टेट नहीं, like I के लिए डालूं मैं? Real estate will give me 10% returns, mutual fund will give me 20% returns or whatever. My business is giving me 300% returns. Why the hell will I put anywhere else? And if your business is not paying you more than whatever you're going to invest in, then you should shut your business.
Correct. But diversifying the funds?
Diversify the function that you're doing in your business. See, the point is, if as an entrepreneur, you couldn't crack the fact that you are going to be able to scale the growth of your money, using it in your business in such a manner with your own skill set. So now you have two things, right? Money and skill set. अब ये चीज यूज करके you can make 3x of whatever mutual funds या stocks भी कुछ बना सकता है. यही मतलब हुआ तुम्हारा.
What are the top 3 mistakes that you have made with money making? कि अगर आप 5 साल पहले वाले निमित से मिलेंगे
तो अभी मैं आपको पहले बिफोर आंसरिंग दैट क्वेश्चन आपको और एक क्रेजी थॉट बताता हूं. सो व्हेन यू स्टार्ट अ कंपनी यू विल हैव अ करंट अकाउंट. सो आई टुक अप अ वेरी वियर्ड चैलेंज टू माय सेल्फ. करंट अकाउंट गिव्स यू 0% इंटरेस्ट. करेक्ट. आई टुक इट टू माय सेल्फ कि अब ये करंट अकाउंट में मैं इतना पैसा जमा करवाऊंगा दैट विल हैव द reserve of more than 36 months of my team and the total cost in the current account. So typically, as a business, it would hurt you very bad that you have so much of money lying in a current account which is 0% interest.
Which is depreciating.
But the reason why it's not actually depreciating is because then I would use the 36 months of reserve and increase my business function to a point where it becomes 12 months of reserve. So for example, if my monthly burn is 8 lakhs, then I will make my monthly burn 24 lakhs and make that 36 months of reserve down to 12 months of reserve. So that it becomes that much more speedier to be able to grow.
तो ये आप कंटिन्यूअस प्रोसेस कर रहे हैं अभी भी कि ये अभी
absolutely. So this is something that I started since 2021.
अच्छा. You've got some really interesting ideas, like मतलब वो एक टॉप परफॉर्मर को फायर कर देना, ये करना, ये कहाँ से रहा है? Where is it coming from?
यहाँ से पता नहीं, मतलब यहाँ पे कहाँ से आता है, but I think it's just natural. मेरे मैं जब छोटा था ना तब a lot of people used to say this in my school, like Nimit has no, like my name is very synonymous to limit. So school में बोला जाता था Nimit has no limit. So I think somewhere it's just got inside me where I kind of somehow land up thinking of ideas that are just absolutely off or weird, and I don't recommend. In fact, a lot of time people ask me, मतलब मेरे फैमिली में या लोग मुझे बोलते हैं कि मतलब क्यों ना इसको थोड़ी करियर एडवाइस चाहिए. मैं बोला भाई मेरे से बात, मतलब मेरे से दूर रखो उसको. गलत रास्ते पे चला जाएगा बच्चा. So and I did this with, by the way, one of my own employees who's now an entrepreneur. So he came to me. So he, by the way, joined our company saying that I'll do 6 months internship. I said, अच्छा आगे का क्या प्लान है? तो बोले MBA करना है. भाई मतलब मत कर यार. बोला, ठीक है. And by the time, so मैंने सुन लिया. But then eventually when he wanted to do an MBA, I sat him down. I said, MBA में क्या सीखेगा? So we had a full 2 hours discussion. सर ये सीखूंगा, इतना इतना ये जैसे. कितना पैसा खर्चा करेगा? He put down the money on. अच्छा ठीक है, अब समझ ले कि अगले साल से तेरी अगर कंपनी में सैलरी मैंने 7 लाख रुपए कर दी, तो हर महीने हर साल कितना रुपया पे करेगा MBA के लिए उसमें सब? तो बोले इतना रुपया. बोला ठीक है, तो एक काम कर, आई एम गोइंग टू हायर यू फॉर 3 lakhs with your assumption that you've invested 4 lakhs in an MBA college, which means your technical salary is 7 lakhs on paper. अब तू MBA में जो सीखेगा ना, उससे 3 गुना यहाँ से सीख के जा. And he actually followed that, and I'm telling you, the only one person who sent me a happy Guru Purnima, every single Guru Purnima, apart from my participants, is that guy.
Achievement unlocked.
Not really an achievement, but I mean, it feels great that somebody, respects you that way.
हाँ. नहीं, I've gone through this phase जब सामने वाला looks up to you and it's such a good feeling. It's really nice. Anyway, we're going to the top 3 mistakes that you've made in building your personal wealth.
Top 3 mistakes. I would have definitely wanted to, instead of buying a car, I would have loved to, probably use that same amount of money and invested in, any potential investment instruments like an SIP or a mutual fund.
आपको नहीं लगता हम शुरू में इतनी मेहनत करते हैं और फिर we deserve a token of appreciation that is a car as a founder?
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing, right? So car is actually not a token of appreciation. It's just a sort of comfort, right? But what we don't realize is it's a depreciating asset. It's definitely an additional expense. Whenever you sell this, you want to go to the next bigger car. You'll never go to a smaller one, right? So which means कि आज अगर मैंने 10 लाख की गाड़ी खरीदी, अगली बार तो मैं 15 की खरीदूंगा, right? So it gets you into a very different cycle, which will always make you spend more, right? So I mean, and I'm saying there's nothing wrong with having a car, right? But I would have probably wanted to use that money in that timeline instead of a car into something else. Given a choice now, if I look at it in reverse, तब तो जो कर रहे हैं वो सही लगता है.
Mistake number 2.
Mistake number 2 with wealth creation, I think, would be. I mean, I have been very overly risk oriented as a person. So I have lost massive amount of money in stock markets, wanting to make more from it, having zero knowledge about it, like everybody would try typically. अरे नहीं ये तो मतलब everybody thinks before entering into it कि यार ये तो मैं crack कर लूँ. Eventually start losing money. That's when you realize यार ये मेरे पास का नहीं है. So yes, mistake number 2, instead of doing it for the sake of multiplying wealth, if I would have done it with the intent of saving, I would have rather actually made more money than the amount of money I've lost.
And the third mistake? किसने आपको फाइनेंशियली ड्रेन किया है? मतलब यार ये नहीं करना था यार.
Financially drained. So there are a lot of people think buying a home is a necessity, and they commit to that particular dream too early. Probably to also a certain extent, creating a family is also a very big commitment financially. So I think creating a family or buying a home does 2 things to you. One, it increases your commitment to a large extent as an entrepreneur. And second, it also puts a lot of clutches to you, because then you can't move as flexibly or take those kind of risks or be that, free flowing guy, because you have more things to look at and more things to handle. But if you ask me from a point of view of mistake, I think, I mean, I would definitely I bought a home would definitely delay that. I mean, you should only buy a home when you have made that entire plan. You should not buy a home on loan ever.
Hmm.
Uh, so,
जिस we got rid of होम लोन रिसेंटली एंड जिस रेट से जितना पे बैक किया है उतने रेट से घर का प्राइस बढ़ा नहीं था.
वो तो कभी होना ही नहीं है.
हाँ.
गिवन इन द करंट सिनेरियो तो वो नहीं होना है कभी भी.
हाँ.
द प्राइसेस ऑलरेडी गॉन टू द रूफ एंड
हम्म.
so the whole Lehman Brothers fiasco that happened in the US was also primarily for the same reason, right? Right. The scale at which the prices of the home would have increased was not equivalent to the scale at which they had to pay back.
Correct.
Right. So the people said, "Yeah, काय को pay करें?" छोड़ दो. And then
Something
banks
that is
had to
very
sell it.
similar happening in China as well.
Yeah, and it's going to happen in India as well.
Yeah. All right. So we are already more than 1 hour 45 minutes up. Thank you so much, Nimit ji, for sharing your valuable input. Uh, Anyone who would want to contact you, how should a person reach out to you? And then second one uh, is your company looking for investors? If it is, how do they reach out to you?
So Nimit at growthfactory.com, factory with a double Y. If not because of numerology or astrology, it's because single Y वाला domain available नहीं था. So Nimit at growthfactory.com is my email ID. Best way to reach out to me is on emails. And yes, we are looking at investors who are strategically aligned to some of the things that we're doing in our business, specifically building an entrepreneur school for entrepreneurs. I think that's something that absolutely is an initiative we would love to bring on board investors for, because we would want to build a very different sort of a ecosystem for. I'm very inspired by somebody like Alan Newman, we were founder. Did some things very, very right. Unfortunately, he made some absolute bloopers because of which he lost the entire valuation and everything. But I think the kind of community he created, the way he brought entrepreneurs together, the kind of ecosystem he created for entrepreneurs, that's exactly the same kind of stuff I would like to create. And yeah, for that, I believe investors could be a great contributor in this entire journey. Also, we want to bring industry first experiences to entrepreneurs. So things like a lot of people don't know who's the CEO of Tata Motors, for example, or who's the CEO of let's say Starbucks, or who's the CEO of, like, there are so many companies that have done so well. Like somebody who's a CEO of Chrome, nobody knows about that, right? But if we can bring somebody like that to come down and train entrepreneurs on how do you build scale, how do you build operation, how do you build all of that, right? Those are the kind of things we would love to do. And for that, obviously, we'll have to build a very solid ecosystem and a scale that allows such kind of things to happen. So,
all right.
These heroes are not spoken about, and I think individual entrepreneurs have got far too much of fame than probably what they would have deserved. I think a lot of the credit definitely goes to a lot of these CEOs and management professionals who contribute to the growth of these very well-known brands around us. So I would love to bring that professional structured learning to the lives of entrepreneurs, because I think that's what will allow them to become that much more framework.
So I'm going to list all your details in the description, and people can reach out to you through the description box. That was really great talking to you.
Yeah, and I hope people don't fire their performance agencies, or people don't fire their top performing employees after listening to this conversation. These are just some things that have worked for us. We've tried it, and we saw that it gave us the right kind of goal. So disclaimer, do it at your own pace.